On this episode of the Apple Watchers, Apple Watch detects condition in 80-year-old woman that doctors may have missed. Apple Watch and iPhone can automatically send medical information to first responders. Apple Watch continues to dominate the global smartwatch market. Apple Card planning financing options on devices other than the iPhone. Apple's virtual Worldwide Developers Conference 2020 to kick off June 22nd. Apple releases 13-inch MacBook Pro. Goodbye to the butterfly keyboard. All this, our picks, tips, and much more. This is episode number 25. Welcome to the Apple Watchers, a podcast covering all things Apple Watch and many things Apple. This episode and every episode is brought to you by me, Kevin Hare, and my co-host, Jonathan Zarko, aka JZ. All right, let's get started. Well, hello. How you doing this evening?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, hanging in there, probably just like everyone else, you know?
Yeah, we're recording a little later today. It's kind of nice, though. The heat's dying down, so that's good.
Yeah, it's been hot here in LA. Man, oh man. Well, I hope all of our listeners are safe and healthy, and thank you for continuing to listen to this podcast. Not too much else to say. Why don't we just dive in, and I'll let you start us off with some Apple Watch quick stories.
Yeah, okay. So the Pandora Apple Watch app now supports Siri. And a quick note that for the rest of the podcast, we're probably going to be mentioning Siri a lot, and so to try to circumvent activating your Siri, we're going to try to call it Sally instead. So on April 29th, Pandora updated its app for the Apple Watch to introduce support for Sally, allowing Sally to be used to play stations, songs, albums, and podcasts. The inclusion of Sally support makes it easier to find specific content right on the Apple Watch without needing to rely on the iPhone. Users can also ask Sally to dislike or like the current song for preference tuning purposes. Pandora for iOS is also gaining more personalized discovery for better music recommendations. There's a shuffle stations feature, and there's an option to add music to a specific playlist using Sally, though this is limited to the premium subscribers. The full release notes for the update are below, but basically it includes the new edit shuffle function for premium. You can ask Sally to play stations, songs, albums, and podcasts. You just essentially say, "Hey Sally, play Thumbprint Radio on Pandora." You can also tell Sally that you dislike a current song and just say, "Hey Sally, I don't like this song." So yeah, some pretty cool little features there. There's also some other improvements. You can ask Sally to add music to your collection or for specific playlists. So, "Hey Sally, add Hotel California to my collection on Pandora." You can tell Sally different things like that so you can get an even more personalized discovery.
Cool.
Super cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good they did that, because I can't remember if Spotify has all this now, or Spotify is lagging slightly behind, but
I can use Spotify to start I can use Sally to start Spotify playlists if I know exactly what the playlist is called, or I can use it to start a radio based off of somebody. I don't know if I can thumb up or thumb down the song, so that's kind of cool. And I don't know if I can also just have it, save things. So some controls, but I don't know if it's as in depth as this. But pretty cool.
Very cool. Cool. Well, why don't we move on to some Apple Watch heartwarming stories? I don't think we had any on the last episode. This story comes to us from CNET, and it's about 5 people who share their stories of how the Apple Watch has saved their life. Now, we're going to read maybe 2 of them. We'll have a link in the show notes so people can read the rest of the stories. But there was a few that kind of stuck out, and full disclosure to this person that I may butcher their name very much. So a man by the name of Toralf Osvang, who's 68, from Oslo, Norway. So in February 2019, Osvang was staying with his friends just outside of Oslo, Norway, where he lives. When he went to bed after midnight, he wore his Apple Watch Series 4 so he could test the sleep app. He has no memory of his fall that night or how he got back into his bed. So he says, the first thing I remember was lying in bed having a terrible pain in my head. I touched my face and felt blood. He drifted in and out of consciousness until he awoke to a lit room and 3 policemen standing above him.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, sometime around 4 a.m., he had got up to go to the bathroom and he experienced a sudden drop in blood pressure. He fainted and landed face first on the bathroom floor. His collapse triggered the fall detection feature on the Apple Watch, which was a new feature starting with the Series 4, which automatically notifies emergency service if it doesn't perceive any movement after a minute of detecting a hard fall. So he says, nobody heard my fall. My friend and his wife didn't hear anything about it until the police car came to their door. After getting the alert, the local police contacted his wife, who was able to give them the full address where her husband was staying. They could see the GPS coordinates of where I was, but they couldn't see exactly what apartment I was in, Oswald says. They immediately took him to a nearby hospital. He had suffered 3 fractures to his face,
Oh my
and
gosh.
his chin bone had been pressed in. Though he's cautious to say the Apple Watch saved his life, he does admit that it saved him from needing surgery. They say it was important to get to the hospital as soon as possible, says Oswald. The call and the police made that happen very quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that story was pretty amazing because, yeah, the people they were staying with didn't even hear him fall. So that could have been extremely dangerous.
Well, and imagine he fell on a flat floor. If he had, probably been, rotated around a little bit more or moved around, he could have hit his head on a counter table or
Yeah.
a sink or, the edge of the shower or something. Like that could have been really bad. So that's
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool that it just automatically was able to call.
Yeah. Very cool stuff. So the next story, a guy by the name of George Comatiani. He's a 32-year-old man from Brooklyn, New York. His weight had been creeping up on him for years, but it wasn't until he hit 30 that George really felt his nearly 300 pounds start to take toll on his health. It was hard to get upstairs. My knees started making a clicking sound because of the pressure, he says. And then the snoring came in. His doctor at the time warned him that if he didn't lose 30 pounds, his snoring, which was affecting his sleep, would likely worsen and require medical intervention. He decided to take on the challenge of losing weight. He started by changing his eating habits and substituting takeout at his desk to healthier options. As soon as he did, the pounds began to melt off. He was surprised at how quickly he lost 30 pounds, but he also lost muscle mass, which wasn't what he intended, and his snoring was not going away. This is when the Apple Watch kicked in, he says. So then he made a conscious effort to close his move ring. That's the red circle on the watch that indicates the calories burned every day. And he started paying attention to the exercise challenges that would pop up on his screen. The day after a tough workout, for example, the Apple Watch would push him to match the success of the previous day, which he did over and over again. He says, it really helped me understand how much effort I needed to put into my day. Those little things from non-judgmental, disconnected point of view really helped. So within a year of starting his health kick, he had lost 100 pounds, his snoring disappeared.
Whoa.
Yeah, along with his other health issues, the joint pain, backaches, headaches, and he was a lot happier. So his final statement, he said, you don't understand how many weight limitations you have around you. I couldn't even ride a roller coaster, he says. Now I feel like I can do anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Really cool. So, yeah, that Apple Watch kept him very motivated to get out there. You seem to be doing the same. You're not 300 pounds or need to lose like weight, but you're out there going nuts, right?
Well,
Because you have
I
a
am still
goal right
trying to
now.
lose weight because, yeah, now that dude actually weighs less than I do. So now I'm inspired. But yeah, I've been going out and doing walks every day
A
just to try to
lot.
keep active. Yeah, and so my wife and I have been counting calories, and so to do that effectively, I wanted to start adding in some exercise, and so we have like a reduced down amount of calories, and if I work out, then I can have extra calories. So basically I walk for snacks. And I started wanting more snacks, so I started walking more. And now I'm on a stint where I'm averaging at least 3.3 miles per day. But yeah, I started just kind of pushing myself further. And like all of last week, I was able to do 4 or 5 miles to the point where I walked over this month alone of May. So right now we're recording it on the 8th of May. I've actually walked 30 miles so far this month.
Wow.
And since quarantine, I have walked 145 miles and burned over 18,000, almost 19,000 calories, somewhere in there. So it's a lot of snacks. But the weight's also coming off too, which is good. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Cool.
But it's true too, because the watch will tell you, like, hey, yesterday you were a little further by this point, or
Yeah.
you hit a new all-time record for the longest workout, and so it's kind of encouraging, which is cool.
Yeah. My watch tells me I'm pathetic right now.
No.
If it had that feature, it would, but it doesn't.
Just constantly like, hey, you sure you don't want to go outside, walk
Yeah.
something?
Do you have something wrong with you? Get off the couch.
This is the 15th trip to the fridge today. I'm just getting almond milk.
Right. Juice, water,
Yeah.
cold water.
So, all right, let's move on. There was another story about the digital diagnostic helper. So, Apple Watch detects severe coronary ischemia. This is coming from EurekAlert Science News. An 80-year-old patient in Mainz, Germany, who is a passionate Apple Watch wearer, showed up in the chest pain unit of the University of Medical Center Mainz and complained about typical chest pain, irregular pulse, and intermittent prenoscopy. Prenoscopy is all possible symptoms of coronary artery disease and thus possible hairbringers of a heart attack. The ECG recorded in the CPU, that's the medical center, as well as the results from the blood testing were normal. Then the patient presented the ECG recordings to the cardiologist, which had previously been made with her watch. These recordings showed signs of marked so called ST segment depression, a clear sign of a severe coronary ischemia. Based on these recordings, the patient underwent an immediate heart catheterization, which revealed a severe coronary artery disease, such as a main stem stenosis and a bifurcation lesion involving the left anteriorly descending aorta. The main stenosis and the bifurcation lesion were treated successfully with ballooning in the arteries and subsequent stent implementation. The patient was discharged symptom-free and in good conditions 2 days later. The cardiologist Dexler concluded, as many experts and patients as possible worldwide should know that the Apple Watch ECG app can be used to diagnose cardiac arrhythmias, and it may be able to detect coronary ischemia. When used appropriately, the digital diagnostic aids may prevent myocardial infarctions and save many lives, as is in this case with this 80-year-old patient. As one could say, an apple a day may keep the myocardial infarction away.
Cool.
But really cool.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it didn't show up on the other scan, but she showed the watch and they instantly took her into surgery.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like I mentioned to you when we were discussing the show ahead of the recording that I heard this story on a lot of other podcasts that weren't just Apple Watch podcasts or Apple News even, because it's significant that, you know, they wouldn't have detected this, or well, they didn't detect it, right? And then she's like, look at this though, look. And then they were like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, we need to do something about this. So very significant, this story. I think that's why so many tech podcasts covered this story. So
Yeah, I think this is
really neat story.
I think it's an indicator of our future too, as the instruments get more and more sensitive and more accurate. You're going to start being able to get a lot of these data points about your health. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah,
Super
this
cool.
one's really awesome. Well, why don't we move on to some Apple Watch extended stories? So this is kind of an Apple Watch and iPhone story. So Apple Watch and iPhone can automatically send vital medical ID info to first responders. And this is in the beta right now of iOS 13.5 and watchOS 6.2.5. And this story comes to us from 9 to 5 Mac. So Apple's moving quickly to release new software features that improve lives during COVID-19 health pandemic. Excuse me. One new feature that's aimed to help first responders will be useful to iPhone and Apple Watch users even after we each reach the other side of the coronavirus outbreak. The changes coming in iOS 13.5 and watchOS 6.2.5 later this month. So as far as medical ID, Apple Watch and iPhone have supported a feature called Medical ID that lets you collect health data all in one place, right? So medical ID can include your contact information, date of birth, medical conditions, blood type, and more. Medical ID can be accessed from lock screen on the iPhone without a passcode or by holding the side button on the Apple Watch, even if it's locked. The idea is that anyone can see important health information about you in a time of need, even if you're not responsive. So, as far as the emergency SOS, iPhone and Apple Watch offer a separate feature called Emergency SOS. When you hold down the side button on an iPhone and Apple Watch for several seconds, the device can call local emergency services for you. Emergency SOS also alerts your emergency contacts when activated. This feature can be critical in saving lives by notifying first responders when an iPhone or Apple Watch user has an accident. So, what's new in iOS 13.5 and watchOS 6.2.5 is a new capability that connects medical ID and emergency SOS together. Starting later this month, customers can opt into a new emergency SOS feature that automatically shares medical ID information with emergency services. This helps first responders by reducing the need for the need to ask about allergies, medications, and medical conditions. First responders will automatically receive this vital information from medical ID when emergency SOS is activated. Medical ID information is stored in iCloud in an encrypted format and encrypted when in transit. This privacy is maintained with the new capability by relying on enhanced emergency data to securely share the data with first responders. Apple Watch Series 4 and later also has fall detection, which automatically calls emergency services when a fall is detected and a user is unresponsive. We kind of mentioned this in a previous story. The new medical idea is sharing this feature will be used for fall detection as well. The new feature is currently available in the beta versions of iOS and watchOS. So the update should come later this month. So we'll see. This will be really neat.
This is cool. I wonder if the medical services needed to install or get some kind of a new software to be able to receive that information.
Yeah, that's the only thing this article does not mention, and it's sticking in the back of my head. Like, wait, how do they get this information?
Yeah. Although if they were mentioning the fact that the data is encrypted and it's part of the enhanced emergency data. So maybe they already have something that is sending information, like a location or something else. And
Yeah,
so it's just an expansion on that, but really interesting. That'd be a cool thing to kind of research to see how that works out a little bit more.
yeah. We'll have to if there's more info on it. Obviously, there'll be more info when iOS 13.5 and watch OS 6.2.5 come out. So we'll have more details on it, or we should by then. So we can cover this story again.
Yeah, soon. All right.
Cool.
Well, the Apple Watch continues to dominate global smartwatch market in the Q1 of 2020. This is an article from MacRumors. Shipments grew 20% on the year in the first quarter, reaching 13.7 million units, up from 11.4 million units in the previous quarter. Apple Watch retained its dominant top spot with a 55% market share, followed by Samsung and Garmin raising to third place. In Q1 2020, 7.6 million Apple Watch units shipped, a 23% increase from the 6.2 million shipped from the same quarter a year ago. Apple Watch's market share was up marginally from 54% to 55%. Samsung shipped 1.9 million smartwatch units, and Garmin shipped 1.1 million units. Strategic analytics predict a slowdown in growth in the second quarter of 2020, with a recovery in the second half of the year as retail stores reopen and consumers look to smartwatches to help monitor their health. Stephen Waltzer, senior analyst at Strategic Analytics, said global smartwatch shipments grew 20% annually from 11.4 million units in Q1 2019 to 13.7 million in Q1 of 2020, despite considerable headwinds from the COVID-19 scare. Global demand for smartwatches continue to grow. Smartwatches are selling well through online retail channels, while many consumers have been using smartwatches to monitor their health and fitness during the virus lockdown. Apple is expected to launch a new Apple Watch Series 6 this fall, with more rumored health-related features taking top billing, including a blood oxygen level tracking, sleep tracking, and a new fitness app.
Cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I'm actually a little surprised that they are expecting the numbers to go down in the second quarter here, because I would imagine that as people are more quarantined, we may see more sales of that because it is again helping people track their fitness. But if everything starts getting lifted by Q3, that second half of the year, then maybe it will make more sense. They're going to see a big spike then.
Yeah, it seems like it could go either way, because people might want to hang on to their existing iPhone and maybe not upgrade, but then upgrade the watch. Like, okay, this is the time. Like, I want to get fit. I'll just keep that old iPhone. So I don't know. Maybe sales will go up with Apple Watch.
I think what'll happen is we'll start getting to go back outside again, and then people will realize that they've gained the 2020
Yeah.
and be like, I need to do something about this. And yeah, so an Apple Watch can help.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, why don't we move on to some quick Apple stories? So, are you feeling creative, John? Or maybe there's some people out there that want to get into recording audio or maybe editing video? Well, I
Mm.
think this we I think this happened maybe a few weeks or 3 weeks ago. So a little late here, but better late than never. So Apple's Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro X have a 90-day free trial for a limited time, it says.
Oh,
So
cool.
I don't think they've ever done this before. I'm trying to remember if they even had a trial period to begin with. If they did, it may
I
have
don't
been like
believe so.
5. Yeah, I know. Because I think they were getting a lot of heat for it because like a lot of recording software, there's like free versions or free trials,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So maybe they never did. If they did it, I mean, I don't know, 5-10 days maybe. So 90 days is pretty incredible. And they're the full versions of this. So that's what's pretty cool. The only thing that I found out, because I wanted to take advantage of the Logic Pro X, was that you needed a somewhat newer operating system to run it, which is to be expected. But I learned you needed macOS 10.13.6, which is High Sierra or later.
Hmm.
So just to know, I would imagine it's the same for Final Cut Pro. I did not try to download that one, but yeah, take advantage of it. Like I said, I'm giving Logic Pro 10 or X, whatever it is, a try. So
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how that goes. This is actually really smart though, because as people are kind of locked in and have a lot of
mhm.
extra free time on their hands,
Oh
you
man.
give them the software, they get to learn how to use it, become proficient in it, and then maybe even fall like, in love with it and be able to want to use it later on. You're going to
Yeah.
get the sale. So super cool, making it accessible for people who need it now.
Yeah, and I should have researched how much Final Cut Pro is, but I don't think it's a lot of money. I do know that Logic Pro X is like $200, which is incredibly reasonable for a
Yeah, all
full.
things considered.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, like a full recording software, like full
Hmm.
blown. That's cheap. So, but 90 days free is incredible. So if you
Yeah.
feel like you want to try these, it's a really good time. Be creative at home. You know,
Hmm. Learn a new skill.
yeah,
Super
and
cool.
and I'll when I get in deep with it, I'll let everyone know because I'm eventually going to edit our podcast in Logic Pro.
It's going to sound
But
even better.
yeah, it might sound exactly the same, but I want to try it just because. But I use different software and stuff like that, so I wanted to try this. But yeah, it'll probably sound identical, but it'll just be that knowing that it was edited in Logic Pro X that'll make the difference.
And you'll have an extra, tool in your arsenal. Should be cool.
Yes, for sure. Anyways,
so Apple planning Apple Card financing options for
I love
devices
this.
other than iPhone.
I love this.
Yeah, this is going to be great, especially for you with a card.
Well, I wish they would have done it already, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, jumping the gun a little.
Mm.
But it says they may be planning to introduce interest-free Apple Card payments plans for devices other than the iPhone. Apple CEO Tim Cook said during an earnings call on April 30th, covering the second fiscal quarter of 2020. In the QA portion of the call, Cook was asked about a potential for deferred payments or product bundles with the Apple Card, and he had this to say. As you know, we launched the payment plan earlier on Apple Card for iPhone. We're working on that for other products, and you'll see something on that shortly. In December, Apple introduced a 24-month interest-free iPhone installment plan for Apple Card owners. The plan let Apple Card users purchase a new iPhone with the Apple Card and pay it over the 24-month period with zero interest, while also getting a 3% daily cashback for the purchase. Monthly iPhone payments are bundled into Apple Card's monthly installments, with each month's installment included in the minimum payment amount. Installments are not subject to interest unless there is an outstanding balance beyond the 24-month payment grace period. Though Cook did not divulge much information, Apple could introduce similar payment plan options for other products such as iPads and Macs, which are particularly popular right now as people work and learn from their homes. During the pandemic, Apple has also introduced the Apple Card Assistance Program that allowed Apple Card holders to skip their March and April payments without incurring interest charges for that billing cycle.
This is cool. I wonder if they'll do it for the car. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say anything. Not supposed to say anything about the Apple Car.
You forgot the D on that. Card to no.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think this is actually really cool and actually may compel me to consider getting an Apple Card purely for that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were going to buy a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 computer, like a Mac, right, and could split the payments over 24 months, get 3% back, and no interest, like, yeah,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Yeah. What's cool about this, because as we mentioned in this article, is they already do this for the iPhone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about that is it's very similar to the upgrade program, except there's no upgrade involved. So if you didn't want to do the upgrade program, you could just buy an iPhone currently and pay it off over 2 years, interest free with 3% cash back.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's almost identical to the upgrade plan, just without the upgrade. And I've definitely wondered why they didn't do this with other devices. I would like them to do this with the Apple Watch, or even an upgrade program with the Apple Watch as well. But all I can say is thank you, Tim Apple. Let's get this going soon.
Yeah, I wonder if you could set it up so that, because it was mentioning that it could just be part of your automatic payments.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could set it up to be a smaller grace period for smaller devices, like if I were to get an Apple Watch, right, and it could be what, $500 if you're getting one of the nicer ones. If you split that up over just 12 months, even, and then
yeah,
no interest. It's a fairly low payment. That's not a big deal.
3% back.
That would be under $50 a month. That'd be like what, 42 or 43 or something like that. So yeah, that's not too bad. Or if you were, let's say you wanted to buy a laptop, right? Like a 13-inch MacBook Pro or something, and you wanted to upgrade it. If maybe you had enough money to pay it off immediately, but then you go, maybe I'll go for the extra storage or the extra RAM. If you could just pay 90% of it and then finance the rest of it over the course of a year or something like that, I bet they would actually see a lot of up conversions and upsells because they offer it to be sold that way.
Yeah, you know what that just made me think is like if you were on the fence, if you were ordering a laptop or a desktop, whatever, something higher in price, but you were like, I wonder if I should get the extra storage or,
Right.
it's like, well, that 3% back might pay for that extra storage.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I think we mentioned this on a podcast, but, right around Christmas time, it was probably around November, maybe, as they were doing the 6% cash back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if that happens again, or they do that every year, man, what a time to buy a, computer, because you might want to get that extra storage and just have the cash back pay for that extra storage. So
Right. Right.
pretty cool. Yeah, I hope they do this soon. Come on, Tim Apple. Anyways, moving on. Apple's COVID-19 app updated with CDC symptoms and mass care tips. So Apple has released another major update to its COVID-19 app. Two sources of verified information to help us understand the coronavirus, check for symptoms, and get help if needed. So this update came up, I think, last week, but it's version 3.0 of the app. The updates the recognized symptoms and recommended actions in order to match the current guidelines for the Center for Disease Control. Apple has also added tips for how to use and care for a cloth mask, something many of us will be required to wear when in public for a while. This update includes additional language support, bug fixes, and improvements, including updated symptoms for recommended actions to align with the latest CDC guidelines, as we mentioned. You can find a full list of the COVID-19 symptoms under the About COVID-19 section in the app or website. Information about the mask can be found under What You Can Do section. This is the second major update to the COVID-19 app. Last month, Apple added the ability for users to select a state of residence to see guidance from their state's health department, as well as tips to help you keep yourself and those that you care about physically and mentally healthy. So you can download the app if you haven't already in the App Store, or visit the Apple COVID-19 website, and we will have a link to both in the show notes. So
Super cool.
pretty cool stuff there. Yeah, pretty
It's nice
cool.
they're keeping people healthy and
Yeah,
informed.
and it's good they keep updating it. So moving on, I just want to mention there's some free audiobooks you can get from iconic musicians in Apple Music. This was just kind of cool. I thought I'd throw it in here. So Apple is currently offering the ability to stream 13 free audiobooks from iconic musicians as part of Apple Music subscription. The offer is showing up in the Browse tab, currently appears to be limited to US subscribers. So the musicians that are part of these free audiobooks are Rakim from Eric B. and Rakim, Questlove from The Roots, Patti Smith, Pete Townsend from The Who, Tommy Lee, Vince Neil, Nikki Sixx, and Mick Mars from Motley Crue, Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth, Debbie Harry from Blondie, Carrie Underwood, Russ, Kenny Rogers, Paul Stanley from Kiss, Timbaland and Veronica Chambers, and Bobby Brown and Nick Childs. So it's a welcome bonus for Apple Music subscribers during the coronavirus lockdown, as these audiobooks retail from $15 to $30. And I did check this. That is a fact. If you look in the Books app and try to scope out these audiobooks, they can be a little pricey. So sadly, it appears that the offer is limited to the US so far. There is no matching entry in the Browse tab in the UK, and a direct link results in an empty page. It's possible that the books may be available in other countries, but the UK is typically in the first set of countries outside the US to get access to Apple products and services. So I was going to put a link to this in the show notes, but when I click on the link, it just goes into Apple Music, but not where the books are. So there's no section for those books. You have to actually look them up by title. So we'll have a link in the show notes.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll have a link in the show notes. That story comes from 9 to 5 Mac. We'll have that in the show notes. And then if you're interested in any of those titles, they're all listed. And then you can just search in Apple Music and find them. And I've been listening to one of them. The only downside, because if you use, any type of audiobook app, whether it's an audiobook app that has books from the library or Audible, it always remembers where you left off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, this does not. It treats them like they're, each chapter is like a song. So once you go and listen to something else, yeah, so you got to remember where you left off or take a screenshot or something like that. Just a little pro tip. Yeah, I'm used to I just stop my audiobook app and I come back to it. It just picks up where you left off. These do not, but for free, can't beat it. Just got to remember
Yeah.
where you left off. So, and those are pretty good books, pretty cool stuff.
Nice. All right. Well, moving on. Apple's virtual WWDC event to kick off on June 22nd. They announced that Apple has announced that the virtual WWDC event will start on June 22nd, and it will be hosted in the Apple Developer app and the Apple Developer website, and it'll be free for all developers. Apple does plan to hold a keynote event, presumably on the 22nd, when the WWDC begins. WWDC will be our biggest yet, bringing together our global developer community of more than 23 million in an unprecedented way for a week in June to learn about the future of Apple platforms, says Phil Schiller, Apple's Senior Vice President of Worldwide Marketing. We can't wait to meet online in June with the global developer community and share with them all of the new tools that we've been working on to help them create even more incredible apps and services. We look forward to sharing more details about WWDC 20 with everyone as it gets closer to this exciting event. As with the standard WWDC that Apple has hosted in the past year, 2020's digital event will span a week. Apple normally charges about $1,600 for a ticket to attend WWDC, but this year, millions of developers will be able to participate. Apple will be hosting a Swift Student Challenge as part of the event and is taking applications as of today. In a typical year, the Swift-based challenge is used to determine who will get the scholarship to WWDC. Apple says that though the event is digital, there still is an opportunity to recognize the creative contributions of young developers. Students are an integral part of Apple developer community, and last year WWDC saw attendance from more than 350 student developers spanning 37 countries, says Craig Federighi, Apple Senior Vice President of Software Engineering. As we look forward to WWDC 20, although our gathering will be virtual this year, we want to recognize and celebrate the creative contributions of our young developers from around the world. We can't wait to see this next generation of innovative thinkers turn their ideas into reality through the Swift Student Challenge. Student developers from all over the world are able to enter the Student Challenge by creating an interface scene in Swift Playgrounds that can be experienced in 3 minutes. Winners will receive an exclusive WWDC 20 jacket and pin set, with more information available on Apple's website. Apple says developers should download the developer app, where additional WWDC program information, such as details on the keynote, the platform State of the Union, sessions, and lab schedules, will be shared in June. Apple will also make this information available on the Apple developer website and by email. At WWDC, Apple will unveil iOS and iPad OS 14, Watch OS 7, TV OS 14, and Mac OS 10.16. There's no word whether we will see new products introduced around the event, but Apple is working on AirTags, tile-like Bluetooth tags that could come out around that time. There's also a new 23-inch iMac in the works, along with a high-end over-ear headphones, some kind of wireless charging mat, fingers crossed on that one, a new iPad Air, and an updated Apple TV with more, with details on what Apple is developing available in our upcoming product guides. So super cool, really exciting. This was from actually the 5th, so the note in there about the event being open now, or open as of today, was actually as of a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
But super cool.
Yeah, this is going to be cool. I'm actually really excited. I guess the excitement is that it'll be neat to see how they handle this.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot different than any previous WWDC. Yeah, this should be really, really interesting. Oh, also the fact that it used to be really expensive, and basically, if you have a developer account, which is $99, you're in. That's it.
Yeah.
No $1,600 ticket, and then plane fare, and then lodging,
housing, and food.
Yeah, and food. Yeah, I guess you got to eat too. So yeah, I mean, $99 and you're in. So pretty cool. And I like the challenge for the students. It's really cool.
Yeah,
You know.
that's really cool. I'm super
Yeah.
excited just for the keynote on iOS and iPadOS 14 and all the new operating system stuff. I always get a good kick out of that. So it'll be a good watch, I'm sure.
Yeah. We'll see what it's like without a crowd too. It's always kind of
That that'll be strange. Yeah.
yeah, it's been I don't know if you've seen any on kind of a separate subject, but any TV shows that relied on a crowd, and
Yes.
it's a bit odd. They're doing Saturday Night Live again, and it's odd to say the least.
Last week tonight with John Oliver on HBO sounds a little dystopian with him without a crowd, because he makes
Yeah.
these jokes and I started to chuckle to myself and stuff, but it's just quiet, and I don't know, it makes what he's talking about just sound even sadder. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of wish they would like pump in some fake laugh
Yeah.
from like some old 70s sitcom or something, or
Totally.
80s sitcom.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Yeah.
that too. So we'll see what they do for WWDC, because part of it, the whole thing was the crowd reaction. So they'll unveil something and it'll be silent.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, what I would want them to do is to just essentially put together like an hour-long program.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when they would unveil a new hardware piece, you never got Johnny Ive to come out. There was always like a pre-recorded,
Yeah.
sizzle reel. I want an hour of that. Like
Yeah.
just tight. They don't need them doing it live and fumbling over things. Just make
That
me a
is.
really nicely executed, produced hour-long thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would actually be a better way of doing it, because we've seen some mistakes. I forget who it was trying to operate like an iPad, and it just the gestures.
Yeah, couldn't quite get the 3 pinch or whatever.
Yeah.
And people get nervous and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
it's fine when you have the crowd there
Yeah.
and you're doing like a full keynote. I get it, but for this right now, I don't know. And they have the time. They're planning ahead. So
yeah, they should film it like kind of like a movie, but with not all tons of people. But yeah, they should make it. That's actually a good idea. Very good idea.
You listening, Apple?
Yeah, hopefully they're listening, and they haven't finished their videos or ideas and all that.
Oh, they got a month and a half. They're still working. They got to be.
So hopefully they heard that then. You got it here first. It was John's idea.
That's right. If you want me to come and consult, I'm happy to. Not doing a lot right now.
They would make you consult from a distance, probably over a video chat, though. So nice try trying to get on the campus there, but they probably won't have you.
One day.
One day. Anyways, moving on to some Apple extended stories. So Apple's latest iOS beta makes it easier to unlock an iPhone while wearing a face mask. So you might like this, John.
Yeah.
So it says Apple's latest beta version of iOS 13 comes with a much needed improvement to lock screen authentication for those who now spend a majority of their time at work or outside wearing a face mask. Now, instead of constantly attempting to identify your face using Face ID, a process which will work while wearing a cloth or respiratory face mask to protect...
Which will not work.
Oh, which will not work, sorry. Yeah. To protect against COVID-19, iOS will now pull up the manual passcode option after one swipe up from the bottom of the screen. The change, which should eventually arrange in the standard non-beta iOS release, will be a welcome one for many iPhone users who no longer has a model with a physical home button. Yeah, that's when you definitely start to miss that home button.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a user of the iPhone 10, 10s, or 11, you're probably well accustomed to the frustration of trying to use any of your Plus or Pro variants while covering your face, as the software will insist on trying to authenticate biometrically instead of just kicking you to the passcode screen. It can often take upwards of 10 to 15 seconds and numerous swipes to force iOS to let you input your code. Not only that, but the user interface design could put iPhone users at risk as they feel like they have to quickly remove their mask just to unlock their devices.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see Apple make a fundamental change to how iOS authentication works without undermining security to accommodate the current predicament that the world finds itself in. In addition to the Face ID changes, Apple is also modifying FaceTime video calls to allow users to disable the feature where the active speaker grows larger in the algorithmic grid and an event a static grid of faces. It is preferable for video calls with many people talking after one another. This will be an opt-in feature in the FaceTime settings, and once enabled, you'll have to tap on the person's feed and make it prominent in the grid.
So that's that whole when you have all the different faces and one of them
Yeah.
is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Normally it just swaps whoever that bigger one is
Yeah.
because based off the voice and the person who's talking. But I guess when you have a mask on, it may not know who's talking as easily. So it's
Yeah.
just instead of it trying to jump around a bunch, it's just gonna let you manually choose it.
Yeah, I kind of didn't think about that, and I haven't tried that. Any video calls I've made have been at home,
Mm-hmm.
but I imagine there's people out there, and of course, healthcare workers that are probably
Yeah.
making FaceTime calls, and they can't take off their mask and all that. So
I mean, I like this idea of just as soon as you swipe, like still try to scan my face, but pull up the keyboard so that because you're changing your behavior based on your location, right? And so most of the time when I'm at home, I have no problem using the Face ID. And it is really frustrating though to walk around the grocery store and then go, okay, I'm looking at my list. I need milk. And then I put my phone away and I walk over and I get the milk and then I pull my phone out again. I go, okay, what's next on the list? And then you got to swipe, 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 or pull your mask down a little bit and then be able to, log in. And it sounds silly, 10 to 15 seconds and numerous swipes, but it's frustrating. It's annoying and it just kind of ruins your rhythm. So this is a really smart and kind of ingenious way to allow you to just instantly enter that information in there. So
yeah,
very
very
cool.
cool. Yep, very cool stuff.
So Kevin, did you hear Apple has unveiled a new 13-inch MacBook Pro with a magic keyboard?
I did sort of hear about it. Actually, you sent me the text. I hadn't checked all the news yet. I kind of take a few hours to get into news, and yeah, you alerted me of that one.
Yes, I was super excited to share that with you because I know you have been thinking about it. So, following a year of speculation and rumors, Apple has released a new 13-inch MacBook Pro with the Magic Keyboard and up to 10th generation Intel processors. The new 13-inch MacBook Pro uses Apple's refreshed Magic Keyboard that debuted on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. The touch bar is also used across the lineup, as it was on the previous model that it replaced. As with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the 13-inch MacBook Pro has a physical escape key. So for all of you guys that were really mad that it wasn't there before, you can now get it. The 13-inch MacBook Pro lineup now offers up to the 10th generation quad-core Intel Core processors with turbo boost speeds of up to 4.1 gigahertz. Apple claims that customers upgrading from a 13-inch MacBook Pro with a dual-core processor will see up to 2.8 times faster performance. Like with a relatively minor Mac Mini refresh in March, the 13-inch MacBook Pro now comes with double the storage of the previous generation, with standard storage starting at 256 gigabytes, ranging up to 4 terabytes. It's massive. The 13-inch MacBook Pro screen is the same size as the previous model at a resolution of 2560 by 1600 at 227 pixels per inch with 500 nits of brightness and a wide color support for True Tone technology. The video chipset on the 8th generation Intel chip models are the Iris Plus Graphics 645, with the 10th generation models utilizing the more powerful Intel Iris Plus Graphics integrated set. The 8th generation models support one external display at 5K running at 60 gigahertz. 60 hertz, or two external 4K displays at 60 hertz. The new Intel Iris Plus graphics on the 10th generation models enables the users to connect to the Pro Display XDR at full 6K resolution. As with the previous 13-inch MacBook Pro, the new 13-inch MacBook Pro has two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the lower end 8th generation models, with 4 on the highest end. supplemented by a single headphone jack. Wireless communications are provided by the 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi 6, but got to have something, and Bluetooth 5.0 across the board. Configuration starting at $12.99 with the 8th gen i5 1.4 gigahertz quad-core processor with the turbo speeds of up to 3.9 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM, and 256 gigabytes of storage. And an 8th generation i7 model is available as well. A 2.0 gigahertz quad-core 10th generation i7 model with turbo speeds of up to 3.8 gigahertz and 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage retails for $17.99. A fully maxed out configuration with the 10th generation 2.3 gigahertz quad core i7 processor with a turbo boost to 4.1 gigahertz and 32 gigs of RAM and 4 terabytes of storage sells for $35.99. So $3,599. Orders have already started for the new model, and the earliest orders have started arriving already into people's hands. So super, super exciting.
Yes.
A great MacBook Pro at a very good price point, I think.
Yeah. Why don't we? Yeah, let's point out a few things because it may have sounded like a bunch of gibberish to some people. But if you want the updated 10th generation i7, you do need to spend that $17.99. So essentially, the other models that start at $12.99 and go gradually up from there still have the old 8th generation, but they have a new keyboard. So they all have the new keyboard. So also this marks the end of the butterfly keyboard.
Yes.
Probably forever. So this is good news. So the whole line of MacBooks, the MacBook Air, MacBook Pros, no more butterfly keyboards. Nowhere. Anywhere.
I think it was actually really smart for them to essentially offer the last year's model, which was great and screamed with the upgraded keyboard.
Yeah.
And just introduce that as the entry level version, but then also offer the option with the upgraded guts, so you get the better internals, the better keyboard, and they throw in 2 more Thunderbolt ports just for good measure on there too. So very cool.
And I did notice that the $17.99 models, they shipped a little bit later than the other models for some reason, but not by much. Whatever it is, 4 or 5 days, something like that. And that may have changed since. What else? Yeah,
I do know. I was watching a review on it on the Verge, and it's actually a hair thicker.
Yes,
than the original one.
That's what I forgot.
A little bit heavier.
Now, yeah, I have something to say about that too, because we've spoke about it on other episodes. I am not opposed to that at all. I mean, I'm the one that said
same.
I would actually take my old machine from 2009 and just put new guts in it. I don't care how it's heavy, but I don't ever think about it at all. It's fine with me. I mean, I think this one might be slightly heavier too, maybe slightly, but that's totally fine. Like we need, it's a pro model. The Air model, the MacBook Air, is for thinner, lighter. The Pro models, you can even go a little bit thicker next year, Apple, if you need to.
Increase the battery or something.
Yeah,
I think this time they
battery.
increased the thickness to help with the key travel.
Yep.
So because they upgraded the keyboard, what I think everybody is happy to get. Because it is negligible. You can barely see how much thicker it is and heavier it is. So,
and even if it was like another millimeter, man, it just performance. That's what we need, and functionality. They'll always look beautiful, but they don't have to be thin to look beautiful either. Again, that's what the MacBook Air is for. It's super thin.
Big is beautiful, Kevin.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
whether it's people or laptops.
That's right. So, yeah, we'll speak about it more because I may have purchased one.
Ooh,
so, yeah, maybe
exciting.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more. I got to make sure I'm going to keep it, and all that, make sure everything's good. got 14 days to decide when you buy an Apple device whether you want to keep it. So let's make everything, make sure everything's cool.
I think once you get in and you get your dongles, you're going to be set and you're going to love it.
Don't get me started. I'm not a fan of the dongles. I'm not.
Like right now, it's a pain in the butt. It's kind of like when the iPhone switched over from the 16-pin connector to the Lightning cable. Everybody was like, "Oh, you're changing my thing. I gotta buy it." But more and more new products are coming out, and they use USB-C.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's going to be like, "Oh, we're good." And the fact alone that you can put it in either direction is worth the upgrade to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Actually, man, with USB, it's like you always put it in the wrong way. Same with those old iPhone connectors.
Yep.
You would always, why is it that I always have it in upside down? It was always upside down, and it almost seems to be like Murphy's Law with USB as well.
I don't know what it is about USB, the current or the USB A or B, the old model, not the USB-C version, but it's like it's got a third quantum side, and that's always the side that you first put it into. It doesn't matter. It's just always going to be the wrong side. And then you rotate it again and you try it and it still doesn't work. And then you rotate it again, and then lo and behold, it works.
It's actually, there's something internal like moving. Just mess with
you. It has to be spun around a couple times and then it lets you in. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll get used to it. We'll see. But it's a lot coming from my old machine, because my old machine has like every port you can imagine. I think there's a tape deck and like a floppy disk drive, and you could play records. Like you can insert
an 8-track.
Yeah, the 8-track player. Awesome. Sounds amazing. I just hate when the songs cut off though, and they cut off at one part and then they come back.
Yeah, they do the chunk.
Well, they kind of like they have a fade out in the middle of the song and then they come back on the next track. So that's the only bummer, but love having the 8-track on my old MacBook. It's great.
Yeah.
Pro. Yeah, that's what made it pro. The 8-track.
Right, it was the 8-track.
Yeah. Well, because you could record like CDs. You could put CDs in the CD drive and then record those onto like a 8-track. It's great.
I remember when Apple first got rid of the optical drives out of the MacBook Pros.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What? But I need to." I'm like, I had a lot of coworkers that were really upset about it. And I'm like, honestly, when was the last time you bought a CD?
Yeah.
And they're like, when was the last time you put a CD inside your computer? They're like, well, to download software. I'm like, no, you can download it now. That's exactly it. You don't have to take it off of a disc anymore.
Yeah. And when did you put that disc in? 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
3 years ago. Yeah. And for how many times? Once? Okay, come on. Like it's one of those things where it's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but you get used to it and the technology catches up. I think it's the same thing with the headphone jacks too on like the phones.
Yeah.
Although interestingly enough, they did include it on this one.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly to support audio professionals who want to use really, really good, wired cans and not have the latency of Bluetooth and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them getting pulled out of like the Air models and stuff later on.
Yeah, except that you wouldn't be using really good cans out of a 3.5 millimeter jack. That's what it is, right? It's not a full size.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Real good, headphones have like the 1/4 inch.
Can't you get a converter for that though? Go from like the 1/4 inch to the 35 millimeter?
Yeah, but I don't know if it would actually sound the same. I would have to research that. But that's getting into some real audio nerdy stuff.
Yeah. This is not a nerdy podcast, obviously.
No,
so we'll move on.
Well, yeah, we discussed this last week. It's not the audio nerd podcast, but it is
That's true.
A bit nerdy. But yeah, I don't miss the optical drive. That's for sure. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I've used one. My fiance's old computer has an optical, CD drive, DVD drive. My computer does. But I can't even tell you the last time I've used it. I mean, I hear people even talk about a DVD or like, or want to lend me a DVD. And I'm like, really? I mean, you expect me to walk across the living room Press the button. We have a DVD player and I don't even know if it works. I have no idea. I think the last time we attempted was like 2 years, 2
Yeah.
years ago. But man, imagine walking across the living room to put a DVD in a electronic device.
And then waiting, let
Yeah,
it boot up.
yeah. Oh man. Stone Age. Anyways, I have nothing in the for your entertainment section. Sorry. But yeah, nothing this episode. Well, why don't we get into our picks and tips and then we'll just wrap this episode up. I have a pick this week, and mine is an app called Simple Note. Now, I got this. This was in that, whatever you want to call it, dark time of mine when I would switch to an Android phone very briefly. I needed a notes app that kind of would sync across pretty much almost any device. So this was that, right? Because I couldn't use the default notes, right, on on my computer, on my Mac, and then have it sync with an Android phone, obviously. So I switched to this and I ended up really liking it. Now, it's a lot simpler than Apple's built-in Notes app, but it does have some benefits too, because if you are someone who uses cross-platform, this is available on iOS, macOS, Android, Windows, and even Linux.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, a little less full featured. You can't draw in it, but it's super simple. I actually still use it to this day. In some ways, I prefer it over Apple's default Notes app just because of the simpleness of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I just want to save a link or just a real quick note, that's where I put it because I know I can access it from anywhere, from any device pretty much. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it because it is so simple, but it's just an easy way to, take notes, create little to-do lists, capture ideas, stuff like that. The syncing is fantastic. I think I've even wrote to them and their responses have been pretty quick if you need help. Really great app, just very super simple, and that's why they call it Simple Note. So if that's your thing and you got to if you have a PC, a Windows PC, but you want a notes app that you can sync with on your iPhone, this is it. If you have a Mac and you have an Android phone, this would be a great choice as well. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you got like some cheap Android tablet or something too, that you
yeah.
picked up, and yeah, a cool way to be able to sync that stuff across.
Yeah, and it's got, it does have some good organizational features. You can put little, tags so you can find things easier, stuff like that. You can even have collaborators. So, but that's about as far as it goes. But I really love this app for its simplicity alone. Also has passcode protect or, Face ID, Touch ID. So,
Nice.
yeah, and it's free. So, there's that. I don't actually know how they make their money, but very cool. And I love it.
Hmm.
I actually love it. I use it almost on a daily basis for me. So, yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, for my pick, I'm selecting the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard. So Apple announced this a few months ago when they announced the new iPad Pro, and they finally have been shipping them out. And I think in the last podcast we mentioned that if you get the keyboard, it actually connects, or if you have Apple Care on your iPad, it extends to the keyboard as well. So it's available for the iPad Pro 11 inch and the 12.9 inch. It's $299 for the 11 and $349 for the 12-inch sizes. And I got it for my iPad, and honestly, I love it. It's great. It has the full keyboard in it, and it has a nice key travel. It feels good. The trackpad on it is small, but it's just enough to be able to navigate around on the iPad. And the interface is really cool. We had talked about this before, but how instead of having a little cursor pointer, you have a little circle, and it conforms to a text selection key and other things when you need to. So it's really really snippy and snappy on that. The keyboard itself illuminates, which is really nice. So if you're using it in a dark area, you can still see it. and it's magnetic. So you just attach the iPad to it, and it actually uses that to charge it. So there's one plug that is on the keyboard itself. And if you plug that in, it will charge both the iPad and the keyboard, which is really cool. Now, a couple of things to note. This is a keyboard first and foremost. It can be folded up to work like a cover, but if you are expecting to use the iPad like an iPad normally, meaning like you're holding it either in portrait mode or you want to just have it and be like drawing on it, this may not be the right item for you. It really is meant to convert your iPad into a very similar to like a laptop. And so that is something to kind of be considering if you're thinking about getting it, that it's really more of a stand as opposed to a cover. It does fold up. You can throw it in a bag. That makes things easier. So if you're going to use it on an airplane or something like that, it's great. Or if you want to watch a video or something on it, actually has good viewing angles. It can't go too far back. It doesn't open all the way, but it does give a comfortable viewing angle. I actually like to use it because I can lay in bed and then I can have it kind of sitting on my lap and I can have it kind of angled up at me. Or if I'm laying down a little bit more, I can actually have it be almost like straight up. So that's pretty good. But it is a little strange to try to like grab it and use it as you would think of an iPad, like a regular iPad that has a case, just a front cover, because you're not going to be able to fold that keyboard behind it. And it doesn't. When the keyboard is attached, when you click on things in iPad OS, the digital keyboard doesn't come up. You have to use the physical keyboard. So, which makes sense if you're using it as a laptop, but if you're holding it and you're trying to use it, especially in portrait mode, it's going to be awkward. So, something to consider. Think of it as a stand that can protect the keyboard or protect the iPad, and not as a cover with a keyboard.
Hmm.
It's a keyboard with a cover, not a cover with a keyboard, and it's an important distinction. And you'll be very satisfied with it, I think.
Yeah, I've watched some videos on YouTube about it, and there's been several complaints, I guess. Some people say they have a hard time using it on their lap, like not in bed, but like sitting at a couch or something.
Yeah, I
Like
could
it
see
could be
that
a
too.
little awkward, I guess.
It's heavy. The iPad itself is heavy, and so that is the bulkier thing that's being lifted. So if you have it on your lap and it's not a very stable place to put it down,
Hmm.
I could see it getting a little like top heavy and wanting to fall back.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, like you were saying too, like it doesn't angle back enough. That
Hmm.
was sort of people's complaint. And also it doesn't fold like the I think it's the Microsoft Surface, right? That's the one that
Yeah, theirs can like fold back.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool. Like it's easy to fold back and then just start drawing on it.
Hmm.
I would I mean I would imagine that Apple will make changes, each generation to try to make it more versatile,
Yeah.
so it'll be exciting to see where it goes.
So,
So,
but if you type a lot, or if you want your iPad to look and feel like a laptop, it's a good fix.
yeah, and cost as much as a laptop.
That's true. Yes. If you want a laptop, buy a laptop. Don't get me wrong, because it's actually heavier than an iPad Air or a MacBook Air when you
Yeah,
have the keyboard and the iPad all together. And it is hefty.
yeah.
But like for me, I actually really enjoy it for watching videos and stuff on it. And then once I got used to the idea of using the keyboard as a keyboard when it's all connected and like all the time, once my mentality changed around it, that it's a keyboard with a cover, not a cover with a keyboard, I've been enjoying it more. Because I also will take it off of it a lot if I want to use it. If I'm going to start drawing on it, if I'm going to, if I want to be walking around with it or something like that, that's when I use it that way. I take it off of the keyboard to use it. And so the fact that it's magnetic is really nice because it just pops off. It's a strong magnet. So it does take a little, you have to know how to do it, but I'm not afraid of it falling off or hurting the iPad. But also it's a little hard to open too. So once it's closed, it's protected. It's great. You have to know where to grab it and be able to pull in the right spot to get it to open, because that hinge is really strong to be able to hold the whole deal up. So just something to really consider, that how much you're typing. if you're looking for a quick access keyboard, or if you're looking for just a nice cover, this is not it, because it's going to inhibit the way you may be using it. But if you're looking for a keyboard that is integrated into a cover because you plan on doing a lot of typing, or you plan on using your iPad for a lot of like media consumption, you're going to be looking at a lot of videos or doing a lot of web browsing, and you want to have a keyboard, if you're maybe using it for writing, then yeah, it's great. I'm hoping that soon, some of those graphics applications like Photoshop and stuff like that will start supporting it, so I could actually just run like full versions of Photoshop or Illustrator, and then use the keyboard in conjunction with a mouse, and have it work similar to that, because that would be the holy grail: being able to have the touch screen, be able to use the Apple Pencil to draw on things, and then also be able to use, my command keys and stuff like that to manipulate things would be perfect.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Well, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy. Well, that's it for this episode of The Apple Watchers. Read all the stories we've covered and more stories on Flipboard, a link provided in the show notes. Follow us on Facebook at The Apple Watchers Podcast, on Instagram at The Apple Watchers, and on Twitter at WatchersTweet. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can even ask your smart speaker to play the Apple Watchers podcast. Please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen. And thank you again for listening. Until the next episode, I hope the only complications in your life are the ones on the face of your Apple Watch.